Welcome back to the channel, Rarest Coins, where we uncover the hidden stories and surprising values behind the coins you may have sitting in your pocket, your drawer, or maybe forgotten in an old coffee can. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1968 Washington quarter, a coin that stirred up excitement thanks to claims that one sold for an astonishing $1.7 million. Is it true? Could a simple quarter from 1968 really be worth more than a luxury car, more than a house? Even more than some people make in a lifetime? We're about to find out. Stick with me because by the end of this video, you'll know the real history behind the 1968 quarter, what makes some of them valuable, and whether you just might be holding on to a fortune without even knowing to understand the significance of the 1968 quarter. You first have to look at the context of its time. In 1968, the United States was still transitioning away from silver coinage. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, the mint had removed 90% silver from quarters and dimes due to rising silver prices and a national coin shortage. By 1968, all standard circulating quarters were made of a copper-nickel clad composition. That means, unless your quarter was struck as a proof silver coin intended for collectors, it doesn't contain any silver. This is a key detail to remember, because while earlier quarters from 1964 and before were silver, the 1968 version marked the continuation of the modern clad era for American coinage. The design on the coin remained the same as it had since 1932, with George Washington on the front, designed by John Flanagan, and the eagle perched on the back. What sets the 1968 issue apart is not the design, but rather the specific minting varieties and errors that occurred that year, especially those coming out of the San Francisco Mint. Now, in terms of mint locations, the 1968 quarter was struck at three mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The coins struck in Denver bear the D mint mark, and the coins from San Francisco bear the S mint mark. However, and here's where it gets interesting, the San Francisco Mint in 1968 did not produce regular circulation coins. Every quarter struck there was made specifically as a proof coin, meant for collectors and sold in proof sets. These proof quarters from San Francisco were struck using specially polished dies, creating a mirror-like surface and incredibly sharp detail. But in very rare cases, something unusual happened. A small number of 1968 S proof quarters may have been accidentally released into circulation, or even more interestingly, a few were struck without the S mint mark altogether. Yes, a 1968 proof quarter with no mint mark. This error is incredibly rare, and it's one of the most sought-after modern coin varieties in the Washington Quarter series that Let's Talk value. For a typical 1968 quarter that you might find in your change, if it's circulated and shows signs of wear, it's worth exactly 25 cents. Even in uncirculated condition, most 1968 quarters are only worth a couple of dollars. A Mint State 65 example might be worth $10 to $15. Higher grade examples, like MS 67 or better, can sell for around $100 to $200. Still a great return for a quarter, but not the million-dollar jackpot. Now for the big money. That's where errors and ultra-rare varieties come in. The most famous example is the 1968 S no mint mark proof quarter. Only a handful are believed to exist. This is not just a minor error. This is a major variety that should never have happened. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint were supposed to have the S mark, and yet somehow a die without that mint mark was used, and the coins were struck and distributed. One such coin, professionally graded and authenticated by a top grading service, reportedly sold for well over $10,000 at auction. These kinds of coins are the holy grail for Washington quarter collectors. Even more valuable are proof errors with full cameo contrast, perfect mirror finishes, or other striking anomalies like double strikes, off-center strikes, or coins struck on the wrong planchet. And here's where we get to the heart of the viral story. Rumors have circulated online that a 1968 quarter sold for $1.7 million. It's a headline that grabs your attention. But here's the truth. As of now, there is no official, verifiable record of a 1968 quarter, even an error coin or proof, selling for anything close to $1.7 million. Major auction houses, including Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, have never recorded such a sale. Grading services like PCGS and NGC also have no record of a 1968 quarter with a valuation that high. So where does this number come from? Most likely, the million-dollar story is based on a misunderstanding, a misprint, or just clickbait articles and videos exaggerating the value of rare coins. Sometimes people hear about a rare coin selling for thousands, and the story gets passed along and inflated. Before long, a coin worth 10,000 becomes worth 100,000, and then suddenly it's a million in the next headline. While it's exciting to dream, it's always important to rely on verified auction data and expert sources. That said, this doesn't mean your 1968 quarter is worthless. Quite the opposite. If you come across a proof quarter from 1968, especially one without a mint mark or one with an unusual strike or appearance, it could be very valuable. If you have one, the best thing you can do is get it graded by a professional coin grading service. They will authenticate it, assign it a grade based on condition, and help determine its market value. So to wrap it up, the 1968 Washington quarter has an interesting place in American coin history. It marked the continued shift away from silver coinage. It introduced the first proof-only quarters from the San Francisco Mint, and it became the source of one of the most elusive modern coin errors, the no-S proof quarter. While most 1968 quarters are worth only face value or slightly more, rare high-grade examples and rare errors can be worth hundreds, even thousands. But the idea that a 1968 quarter sold for $1.7 million remains, at best, unconfirmed and unsupported by any official record. Still, this story is a reminder that even the most ordinary-looking coin could have an extraordinary backstory. So keep looking, keep learning, and always check your change, because one day, you might just be the person to discover a hidden gem. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the world of rare coins. Leave a comment below if you've got a 1968 quarter or any other coin you want us to take a closer look at. Until next time, happy collecting and good luck hunting for your next treasure. Let me know if you'd like a version formatted for voiceover, subtitles, or turned into a short script for Reels or TikTok. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into a coin that's been making waves in the collector world and even drawing some viral attention online. It's the 1998 P. Washington quarter, a coin that, on the surface, looks just like any other pocket change, but some claim is worth up to $1.2 million. So what's the truth behind this coin? Is it really worth a fortune? Or is it just another internet myth? Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what makes the 1998 P. Washington quarter special, what to look for, and whether your coin could be hiding a small fortune. Let's start with the basics. The 1998 Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia, which is why you'll see a small P mint mark on the front side of the coin. That's the obverse, where we see the familiar face of George Washington. The design, by John Flanagan, had been the standard since 1932. But here's what makes the 1998 quarter unique. This was the very last year that the traditional eagle reverse design was used before the U.S. Mint launched the new 50-state quarters program in 1999. So in a way, the 1998 quarter represents the end of an era. It's the final chapter of a design that lasted over 6 decades. That alone makes it historically significant to collectors. Now, let's talk about the numbers. The Philadelphia Mint produced a staggering number of these coins. Over 896 million 1998 P quarters were struck, making it one of the most common quarters out there. So naturally, in circulated condition, this coin is still only worth 25 cents. But that's not the whole story. As with many coins, the value really comes down to 3 things: condition, rarity, and errors. When it comes to condition, collectors often look for mint state coins. That means coins that have never been in circulation and show no signs of wear. A 1998 P quarter in MS 65 condition, that's a high grade, might fetch around $10 to $12. Not life-changing, but it's a nice premium for a coin that cost you nothing to pull from your change. Now, in higher mint state grades like MS 67 or MS 68, things start getting more interesting. In fact, one of the highest graded 1998 P quarters ever sold at auction went for around $1,300. That was an MS 68 specimen, and it was nearly flawless. So yes, Condition can make a big difference, but that still doesn't get us anywhere near $1.2 million. So where does that massive price tag come from? Well, this is where things get a little more interesting. While most 1998 P quarters are common and low in value, some very rare varieties and mint errors can bring in serious money. One of the most talked about varieties is the wide AM reverse. Now, to be clear, this error is more commonly known from the Lincoln Cent series, but there have been reports of spacing anomalies and striking errors on 1998 quarters as well. Most of the big money, though, comes from dramatic mint errors. For example, a 1998 P. Washington quarter struck on the wrong planchet. That means it was accidentally made using the blank metal intended for another coin, once sold for over $18,000. That particular coin was struck on a 1-cent planchet, making it smaller, lighter, and with a completely different look and sound. Because it was a genuine mint error and graded highly by a professional service, collectors were willing to pay big. Another category of rare and valuable 1998 quarters includes off-center strikes. That's when the coin's design is not properly aligned and part of the image is missing. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin. Some off-center 1998 P quarters have sold for hundreds, even thousands, depending on how much of the design is visible and how well the coin was preserved. There are also double strikes, triple strikes, broad strikes, and coins with die caps. All of these are rare minting anomalies, and when they happen to a coin as common as the 1998 P quarter, it turns something ordinary into something truly collectible. So while it's true that a regular 1998 P quarter is usually worth no more than a few dollars at best, a coin with a dramatic error can bring in serious money. But what about that $1.2 million figure that's been floating around? The truth is, there is no verified sale of any 1998 P. Washington quarter selling for that amount. No coin grading service has documented such a transaction. Most likely, the story originated from an online post or a clickbait article that exaggerated the potential value of rare error coins. And while it's fun to imagine pulling $1 million coin from your change, it's important to separate the hype from reality. That said, just because the $1 million story isn't real doesn't mean you shouldn't keep an eye on your quarters. Rare coins have been discovered in the most unexpected places, in junk drawers, in parking lots, even in old jars tucked away in grandma's attic. You never know what you might find, and that's part of the excitement of coin collecting. It's not just about value. It's about history, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt. So, to wrap it all up, the 1998 P. Washington quarter is a common coin in most cases, but it marks the end of a classic design that spanned over 60 years. In high-grade uncirculated condition, it can be worth a bit more than face value. If you have one with a major mint error, the value can climb into the hundreds or even thousands. But if someone tells you their 1998 P quarter is worth over $1 million, it's probably time to ask for some proof and a good laugh. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most iconic coins, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Got a 1998 quarter of your own? Drop a comment and tell us about it. Maybe you've got a rare one and don't even know it yet. Until next time, happy collecting and always check your change, because you never know when history might be hiding right in your pocket. Let me know if you want a shorter version, an animated format, or visuals to go along with the narration. Welcome back to the channel, where today we're diving into the story of the 1980 P. Washington quarter. This is a coin that millions of Americans have handled without a second thought, yet recently it's been making headlines and stirring up a lot of curiosity. Why? Because there are claims online that this everyday quarter could be worth as much as $1.3 million. That's right, one coin, one quarter, supposedly worth more than a luxury home. So today we're going to unpack the real history of the 1980 P quarter, find out what it's actually worth, what rare errors might make one valuable, and whether this viral $1 million story has any truth to it at all. Let's start with the basics. The 1980 P. Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia, which is what the small letter P stands for on the front of the coin. It's right next to George Washington's ponytail. That mint mark is important because prior to 1980, Philadelphia didn't typically use a mint mark on quarters. So the 1980 quarter is actually the very first year that the Philadelphia Mint included a P on the Washington quarter. That might sound small, but to collectors, firsts are always interesting. It marks a shift in the mint's policy and makes this coin a little more special in the timeline of United States coinage. Now let's look at production numbers. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 635 million Washington quarters in 1980. That's a huge number, which means this coin is extremely common. You can still find it in circulation today, and if it's a regular circulated example with signs of wear, it's worth exactly what it says on the front, 25 cents. So where does the idea of a $1,000,000 version of this coin come from? As with many viral coin stories, it's a mix of half-truths, speculation, and rare exceptions. While the average 1980 P quarter isn't valuable, there are certain conditions and errors that can dramatically increase its worth. The condition of a coin matters a lot. Coins that have never been in circulation, that have no scratches, dents, or wear, and are graded very high by professional coin grading services, can sell for much more than face value. A 1980 P quarter in mint state 65 might be worth $10. A coin in mint state 67 might be worth $30 to $50. And if you have a coin that's been graded mint state 68 or higher, now you're in the territory of hundreds or even $1,000. These are extremely rare, high-grade coins that have been preserved perfectly since the day they were minted. But let's talk about what really gets collectors and investors excited: errors and varieties. These are coins that were struck with mistakes at the mint. And in the world of coin collecting, mistakes can be very valuable. For the 1980 P Washington quarter, there are a few known errors that command attention. One is the off-center strike. That's when the coin isn't struck right in the center of the planchet and part of the design is missing. If the off-center strike is dramatic and still shows a full date and mint mark, it can be worth anywhere from $50 to a few $100 depending on the severity and condition. Another valuable error is the double die. This happens when the die that strikes the coin shifts slightly between strikes, creating a doubled image, usually most visible in the lettering or numbers. A strong double die on a 1980 P quarter, though not widely reported, could bring in a high premium if found. Then there are broad strikes and clipped planchets, where the coin was either pressed without the retaining collar or cut incorrectly before it was struck. These can also sell for decent money, usually between $20 and $200 depending on the severity and grade. And now we come to the big question. Is there any truth to the idea that a 1980 P quarter could be worth $1.3 million? As of now, there is no publicly verified record of any 1980 P Washington quarter selling for that amount. No auction house, no grading company, and no collector has documented a sale of that size. The highest known prices paid for any 1980 P quarter, even with errors or in the best possible condition, tend to land in the low thousands at most, and even those are extremely rare. So the story of a $1.3 million quarter appears to be either a major exaggeration or simply clickbait designed to grab attention. That said, just because a coin hasn't sold for a certain amount doesn't mean it's impossible. In the world of numismatics, new discoveries are made every year. A previously unknown error or a one-of-a-kind minting flaw could someday command a huge price, especially if it captures the attention of high-end collectors. But for now, there is no documented $1 million 1980 P quarter to S. Oh, what does all this mean for you? Should you be checking your change every day for a rare 1980 quarter? The answer is absolutely yes. Because while you're not likely to find one worth $1 million, it is entirely possible to find a coin worth $50, $100, even several $100 just because of a rare error or high-grade condition. And let's not forget the fun of the hunt. Coin collecting is not just about profit. It's about history. It's about preservation. And it's about the thrill of discovering something valuable where others saw only spare change. If you want to check your 1980 P quarter for value, start by examining the condition. If it looks uncirculated, consider sending it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Check the weight to make sure it hasn't been struck on the wrong planchet. Look closely at the lettering, the date, and the edges for signs of doubling or striking errors. And most of all, if something looks strange or unusual about the coin, don't ignore it. That's often how the rarest errors are discovered. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the 1980 P Washington quarter. If you found this video helpful or interesting, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on rare coins, currency, and collectibles. Drop a comment below if you've got a 1980 quarter or any other coin you're curious about. And as always, keep your eyes on your change, because you never know when a tiny piece of history might end up in your pocket. Let me know if you'd like this script adapted into a short version or formatted for subtitles, reels, or TikTok narration. Welcome back to the channel where we explore the incredible stories behind some of the most ordinary-looking coins. Today, we're talking about a coin that you've probably seen 100 times without giving it a second thought. It's the 1990 D Washington quarter. Now, at first glance, this coin may look like just another quarter you'd use at a vending machine or toss into a tip jar. But some recent headlines and viral posts have been claiming that this very coin could be worth as much as $1.3 million. That's right, $1.25 worth of metal, supposedly worth over $1 million. So the big question is there any truth behind the story? Can a 1990 D quarter really be worth that much? And if so, how do you know if you have the right one? Let's break it all down, starting with the history of the coin, what makes it interesting, and how to separate the facts from the fantasy. The Washington quarter has been a staple of U.S. currency since it was first introduced in 1932, designed to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design has remained relatively consistent over the decades, with the famous image of Washington on the front, or obverse, and various reverse designs introduced later, including the 50-state quarters and America, the Beautiful series. But in 1990, the design was still using the classic heraldic eagle on the reverse, the same one that had been there since 1976 following the Bicentennial series. Now, let's talk about the specific coin in question, the 1990 D Washington quarter. The D Mint mark means it was struck at the Denver Mint. In that year alone, the Denver Mint produced over 927 million of these quarters. That's nearly 1 billion coins. So from a mintage standpoint, this is a very common coin. You could easily find one in your spare change, in a coin jar, or tucked away in an old drawer. Most of them are worth exactly what they say on the surface, 25 cents. But as with many things in the world of numismatics, it's not just about how many were made. It's about how rare certain variations or errors are, and what condition the coin is in. Let's start with condition. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70. The higher the number, the better the condition. A coin graded mint state 65, for example, is well struck with only minor marks. At this level, a 1990 D quarter might be worth a couple of dollars to the right collector. If you have a coin in mint state 67 or better, you could be looking at a value of around $50 to $100. Coins graded mint state 68 and above are extremely rare and can fetch several $100s or even more depending on market demand. In fact, one of the highest graded 1990 D quarters ever sold reached over $1,000 at auction, and that was purely based on condition and perfect preservation. So while most 1990 D quarters are worth face value, top-tier examples can still bring in serious money. But what about the headline everyone wants to talk about? The claim that a 1990 D quarter sold for $1.3 million? As exciting as it sounds, this claim is not backed up by any official auction house, coin grading service, or credible source. There is no verified record of a 1990 D quarter selling for anything remotely close to that amount. So where does this story come from? Like many viral coin stories, it likely started with a misunderstanding, an exaggerated headline, or a misreported value. It's common in the world of rare coins for real but modest sales to get blown out of proportion online. A coin that sold for $1,000 becomes $10,000 in a repost. By the time it reaches the third or fourth blog or social media post, it's suddenly worth over $1 million. And that's how myths are born. That said, there are legitimate reasons why a 1990 D quarter could be worth significantly more than face value, but it has nothing to do with made-up million-dollar price tags. The real value comes from rare mint errors and unique characteristics. So let's talk about the kinds of errors that can make a 1990 D quarter valuable point. One of the most sought-after types of errors is the off-center strike. That's when the coin is not properly aligned during the striking process and part of the design is missing or shifted. The more dramatic the off-center error, and the more of the date that remains visible, the more valuable the coin can be. Off-center errors can range in value from $50 to several hundred, depending on how extreme the misalignment is. Another type of error is the double die, where the design appears to have been struck twice, creating a ghosted or shadowed effect. If a 1990 D quarter were to show clear doubling on the date, the lettering, or the portrait of Washington, it could easily be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially if authenticated and graded by a professional service. Then there are coins struck on the wrong planchet. This happens when a blank intended for another denomination accidentally ends up being used for a quarter. For example, if a quarter was struck on a planchet meant for a penny or a nickel, it would appear slightly smaller or different in weight and color. These types of errors are rare and often sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. Other errors include die caps, broad strikes, and even coins with missing clad layers. These unusual defects can also carry serious value depending on how dramatic and well-preserved they are. So, does this mean your 1990 D quarter is worth a fortune? Maybe, but only if it has one of these rare errors or is in near-perfect mint state condition. The vast majority of them are worth 25 cents. Some may be worth a few dollars if they're in excellent shape. A few rare examples with unique characteristics might be worth hundreds or possibly thousands. But as of today, there is no real evidence that any 1990 D quarter has sold for $1.3 million. Still, that shouldn't stop you from checking your change. Because even if you don't find $1 million coin, the thrill of discovering something rare, unusual, or historically significant is part of what makes collecting so exciting. If you do come across a 1990 D quarter that looks strange, has missing features, appears off-center, or is in nearly perfect condition, it's worth getting it checked out. The best way to do that is by sending it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. They can verify the coin's authenticity, determine if it has any special errors, and assign it a grade that will help you determine its market value. So, to wrap it up, the 1990 D Washington quarter is a coin with a story. It may be common in everyday use, but hidden among the nearly 1 billion that were struck, there are rare gems that collectors are hunting for. While the idea of a $1.3 million sale is nothing more than internet hype, the truth is that these quarters can still be surprisingly valuable if the right conditions are met. Keep looking, stay curious, and remember, treasure isn't always buried underground. Sometimes it's sitting right in your pocket. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1990 D quarter, make sure to subscribe for more content on rare coins, historical currency, and the stories behind the money we use every day. Drop a comment if you have a 1990 D quarter or if you've ever found a coin that turned out to be worth more than you thought. Until next time, happy collecting and always check your change. Let me know if you'd like a condensed version for shorts or social media, or a version with timestamps and editing cues for video production.